Hello, FedPhoenix fam. So, I want to do a video real quick on some bad advice that I was given prior to incarceration. And sometimes it was actually from previously incarcerated people. Sometimes it was from random people, those who have done time with loved ones or, just outside sources, right? But there was one piece of advice that I was given over and over again from people regarding, what to do while in prison, that now that I've been in prison and now that I have a greater understanding of reentry and all that, I've actually learned is counterproductive to your reentry. So let me just hop right into it. One of the things, if you are a person who will be self surrendering, right? Or even if you're being detained and you're waiting to go start your prison time, and a lot of times, even if you're just in county jail or something and holding and and are assumed to be for a while, one thing that a lot of people will tell you over and over and over to try to support you or give you advice or help you get through things is people say get into a routine, right? Because if you're in a routine, particularly if it's a very busy routine, your time will go by faster. First off, this is true. Absolutely. Second off, this is probably the worst thing you can do for yourself in regards to your reentry. And I say in regards to your reentry, and I'm going to tell you why. So, if you haven't watched my video on post-incarceration syndrome, please do, because it's a thing, it's an issue that people need to be aware of. The incarcerated, the soon to be incarcerated, loved ones of incarcerated, loved ones of soon to be incarcerated coming home, whatever. It's a very big issue that really does not get the attention it deserves. But and I forget the exact number, and it's late at night, and God knows I'm tired. But so I'll give you numbers that are I know close to the actual numbers. There was a study done. I actually think many studies, but generally the consensus of several studies was persons in the free world, right, make an average of 4,000. Now that's just mind blowing to me, but it is what it is. 4,000 decisions a day. When I get up in the morning and every time I snooze an alarm, that's a decision, right? Especially because, as it gets later I'm getting down to the wire where I got to get up. I'm like, do I really want to try to get 5 more minutes of sleep, or do I want to make sure I can have a second cup of coffee? And, so probably before I even get out of bed, because God knows I set a bunch of alarms, I snooze them a bunch of times. It's a whole thing with me. Um, I've probably made, without even thinking about it, I've probably just made, or by the time I take my son to school in the morning, which is, a bigger time frame, my first hour or so awake, I could see where in that time frame I've probably made over 100 decisions without even realizing I'm making decisions, small decisions, I'm putting, my protein shake in my coffee, as creamer. And I'm like, should I add more? Should I not? Should I do the caramel cold foam, the caramel macchiato, maybe a little pumpkin spice? Maybe I'll just do the pumpkin spice. And if you really analyze your daily movement, you'll realize that 4,000 decisions is really, a pretty likely number, right? In a typical day for a person in the free world. Now, having said that, the average incarcerated person makes 400, not 4,000, 400 decisions a day. And what happens is, and the more you have a routine, and particularly if that routine is very busy, so there's less room to make decisions or for any variation, the more, yes, your time will go faster. But when you come home, the adjustment from 400 decisions a day to 4,000 decisions a day is a heck of a lot more difficult. And you're already going to be, under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress and have a lot of adjustment things going on. But in addition to that, if you set yourself up to have to go from 400 decisions to 4,000 decisions, literally the day you go to the halfway house, the day you go home from prison, you are setting yourself up for potentially crippling anxiety. I know a lot of people who, well, I know the people that where I was in prison with that didn't have pre-existing mental illness, which was a small slice. But out of that slice, there were a lot of them that have come home now and I've spoke to. And they said, before I went to prison, I didn't have any like mental illness. And even though I was under a lot of stress and duress being incarcerated, like pretty much everyone is, I didn't really feel that I had any real mental health issues, right? Maybe some mild depression or but or some anxiety because you kind of, it takes you a while to get accustomed to just the madness, right? But they said when I came home, a lot of these people said, but when I came home, I would be in the grocery store. And at first I'd be excited, like, ooh, I have all these options. I have all this access to all these things I haven't had access to in so long. But then it would hit me. I have all these decisions to make. I have all these different, now there are 5,000 varieties, flavors, and types of almond milk that I need to choose from. And I got to pick one. And I need to hurry because I need to get the rest of my groceries. And I got to, go to these job interviews or I got to get the kids from school. Now you have all these different, very demanding routine things that exist in the free world that didn't exist in prison, on top of having to make an overwhelming amount, a tsunami of additional decisions with really no transitional period in between. And I really think this is why when people first get to prison, before they adjust, they often find themselves under a great deal of frustration. Most people would tell you when they were incarcerated, unless there was like a major event, like a loved one passing in the free world or whatever. But most people would tell you when they were incarcerated, the height of the depression of being incarcerated was when they first got to prison and they got settled into their routine. And I think that the reason why this happens, why people kind of go through, or more likely go through a heightened depression state at that point, is because you're forcing your brain to rapidly adjust from 4,000 decisions to 400. So on the front end, that will bring on a great deal of depression. On the back end, when you come out of prison, going from 400 to 4,000 would now bring on a tsunami of, instead of depression, an overwhelming amount of that, it will bring on an overwhelming amount of anxiety. And neither of these things are to your benefit. So I'm going to advise you on how to combat that initial depression from the lack of decision, and then the anxiety when you come home from the increased flood of decisions. What you're going to do if you're self-surrendering is you are going to get into more of a routine, more of a predictable, well-scheduled routine prior to going to prison. So you're going to intentionally drop that decision amount that you make a day from, let's say, 4,000 to, even though I'm sure you can't use them realistic to count them, but maybe from 4,000 to a couple thousand. And even though this is going to be very monotonous and it's going to be kind of anti-instinctive, because as you get closer and closer to going to prison, you're like, oh my God, I need to spend more time with my aunt, or what can I do fun with the kids they'll remember? Fight those impulses the best you can, because you want to purposely drop the amount of decisions you're making prior to going into prison. So there's a lesser adjustment and less depression because of that drop, right? And then while you're in prison, yes, you're going to have some degree of a routine because counts are at specific times, meals are at specific times, different things like that. But to your greatest ability, you are going to mix up your day-to-day, your routine. You're going to force yourself to have additional decisions to make. A lot of people in prison, because it makes the time go by faster, can tell you, even when they come home, on a Tuesday, this is what I did, hour by hour, this is roughly my schedule. This is what I did. If your schedule from, let's say, after breakfast to lunch was, I go to work, or on a weekend, I go to work and I always do this, that. I always wear this. I always have my clothes put out the night before. Don't put out your clothes the night before. Figure out which pair of khakis fit you better and which ones don't. Make sure there's a differential that you've actually analyzed to find. And then don't decide which pair of khakis you're wearing, for anything other than a logistical reason the night before. Make yourself think about it that morning. Don't watch the weather the night before to try to plan what you're going to wear the next morning for your job, particularly if it's an outside job. This is an easy thing to do. Make yourself find out in the morning what the weather is going to be and then adjust accordingly. Do not get in the habit of, I like to always go down for Thursday lunch for bone-in chicken. I didn't usually go down for dinner too much, and I almost never went down for breakfast. It would have been doing myself a great service to say, you know what? 3 days a week, I'm going to go down to breakfast, and I'm not going to plan which days. And by the end of the week, if we're 4 days into the week and I haven't won it all, then I'm just going to make myself go those 3 days. And next week, because I don't like being forced to do something, right? Having to force myself to do something, particularly multiple days in a row, something I don't like early in the day, I'll switch it up some more. But I'm not going to let myself pre-plan which days I'm going to go. And, you have to do this. You have to create variety and decision. You have to keep the monotony in the schedule as busted up as possible during your incarceration time. This way, when you come home, instead of going from 400 to 4,000 decisions a day, right? Maybe you're going from 1,500 decisions to 4,000 a day, which may sound like, well, it's still a big jump, but it's a lesser jump than what you would have had if you didn't do this. And definitely when you come home, just like before you went to prison, you tried to overly structure your life to minimize your decisions. When you come home, you want to ease yourself into decisions as much as possible. So if while you were in prison, 2 days a week you worked out for an hour and a half, try to maintain that. Don't just go buck wild because you're free and start switching everything up really, really fast. Ease yourself as much as your old routine that you can reasonably maintain. Your prison routine, even though your loved ones are going to be looking at you sideways, like, why are you trying to maintain a prison routine? Like, you're home, honey, you're free. They don't understand the adjustment that your brain is going to have to go through as the early phase of your reentry. But now you do. So you be responsible for you. So when you come home, if there was certain times that you automatically got up, don't let yourself decide to oversleep. Take a couple of weeks, and then first couple of weeks, try to stick to as much of your routine as possible. And don't go out of your way when you first come home to, oh, I need to see everyone. I need to do this. I need to go everywhere. I need to eat all these foods I haven't ate. Tell yourself, you know what? Other than what my family's already eating, I will let myself have one or two things a week, snacks, meals, whatever, that I couldn't have when I was incarcerated. But I'm not going to have 2-3 different things a day my first month home that I couldn't have when I was incarcerated, because I know that's going to add to my brain becoming overwhelmed and the subsequent anxiety I will deal with as a person who's recently come home. And, if you're the loved one of a person going into prison, coming home from prison, be mindful of these things as well. And if your person is not aware of these things, have them watch this video, sit down, have a talk with them, write them a letter, tell them about it, educate them, and be supportive of them, minimizing decision and increasing routine before prison, preferably a month or two before. And be mindful and conscientious and supportive of them, and minimizing the change in routine and mixing it up and all these exciting things. Purposefully take them in very small doses, not all at once. Because, this will minimize your post-incarceration syndrome as far as the anxiety that people tend to have coming home from prison. So, and I know it probably sounds like a lot if you're going to go do 2, 3, 5, 10 years for me to tell you, well, a couple months before you start all them years, this is what you should do to prepare for what's going to happen after you do your time. But one thing that we should all know as people who live in an unstable economy, as people going through the injustice system, as whatever, is when you are prepared for things, and the greater you've prepared, the more in advance you prepared, really, truly, the easier you make things for yourself. So this is just a little note on mental health and post-incarceration syndrome. And I really wanted to point out, because it just crossed my mind tonight, holy smokes, literally everybody and their mama was telling me, even people in prison were telling me, you need to get a routine. And the more tightly packed your routine is, the quicker your time will go by. And at different points, I try to adhere to that because they were right. And it's logical. But now that I've been through prison, now that I've dealt with and deal with post-incarceration syndrome, now that I see other people, go through this reentry journey as well, I'm realizing even though the advice is true, It is absolutely freaking horrible. It's like the advice, if you happen to break a toe and you don't have any pain medication, you can't get to a doctor. The best way to distract yourself from that broken toe, to make that pain non existent to you, is to go break your shoulder, break a rib, create a worse issue for temporary relief from a small issue. And that is exactly what overstructuring and overscheduling yourself while you're incarcerated will do, as will, not under scheduling, structuring yourself before incarceration, and jumping into the unscheduled, the unstructured, the things that are almost new again when you come home, head first, full fledged, 100 miles an hour. It's you're breaking you're breaking a rib to avoid the pain of a broken toe, and you're doing yourself no favors in the long run. So, just a little something something. If you find my what I'm sharing, to be interesting or helpful or whatever, feel free to share the video. Please subscribe if you've not already. We're up to almost 400 subscribers. I really have faith that sometime in the foreseeable future we'll get up to 1,000 so the channel can become monetized. God knows that would do me a million favors, and it costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe. Additionally, my Cash App and PayPal will be in the description, as will my Venmo, which, P.S., it's actually working now. Fingers crossed it stays that way. If you'd like to donate to the channel, to my reentry, to my building the FedPhoenix brand, that whole rigmarole, I would greatly appreciate it. Heck, if you want to send me, $3 for, because, you want my next cup of coffee to be on you, I would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, and, my email will be in the description as well if you need to reach out to me, for any reason. I'm here. If you got a loved one that's incarcerated, if you're going to be incarcerated soon, if you are incarcerated and you're watching this on a cell phone, underneath a blanket, in a cell, late at night, and keep the phone away from your face because maybe it has an aroma from where it's kept during shakedowns. If you need my support or my advice, you think my advisement would be helpful, feel free to reach out. My email's in the description. Seriously. I do this because I want to be for you what I wish somebody would have been for me in this journey. Sincerely. What else? There will be a link to the merch line in the description. And, if you'd like to buy any FedPhoenix gear, show your support, show some love. And I'm working on a book, as you know, but as I've mentioned in a video I posted earlier today, I haven't been able to make much headway with that lately because I've had so many other things going on, just life. But I think that's pretty much everything. Whatever you're going through, it is a slice of your life, and you will get through it because you have to, right? That's what we do. So with that, I got to go to bed. It is late, 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 late. So good night. God bless.